Welcome to Green Dot Daily, live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube. But the show will be taking a summer break starting next week. I'm Maria Marino, and coming up today, Frank Seravalli will have picks for Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final. Plus, Jim Turvey and I will react to the Celtics winning the NBA title and get Jim's favorite long shot to win next season. But we start with MLB, and these are the odds for daily strikeout leader via FanDuel. Nick Lodolo has the shortest odds at plus 550. Then Michael King, Alec Marsh, Chris Bassett, and Pablo Lopez each sit at plus 650. Framber Valdez, Nestor Cortez, and Justin Steele round out the top 8. And for the last time this season on GDD, we say hello to our Director of Predictive Analytics, Sean Koerner. Sean, I'm going to do my best to, savor this last segment we have together for quite some time. But when you looked at today's market for strikeout leader, what stood out to you first?
So it's a wide open slate today. As you can see, there's 7 pitchers that have 10-1 odds or lower. And I think the guy that should be the clear favorite here is Pablo Lopez at plus 650. I'm projecting him closer to plus 550, but I am not going to be taking him because there are some weather concerns there. If that game does get rained out, you get your money back. So it might seem like, no harm, no foul. But if they do start the game and there's a delay, and he's, his start's limited because of that, you're going to get screwed. So I'm going to stay away from him today, but I think he should be the clear favorite if that game were to, play without any delay.
Interesting. Okay, so who is your favorite pick on the board?
Yeah, so I'm going with the long shot here. My favorite value of the day is Rodri Munoz of the Marlins. He's 100-1. He's facing the Cardinals today, and he's only pitched 25 innings so far this rookie season, but he has flashed some K upside. He throws 5 different pitches. 4 of them have generated a whiff rate over 20%. And while the Cardinals are a tougher matchup, he just shouldn't be 100-1. We saw a few times last year where these 100-1 or even greater plays tend to hit. I mean, this is a 1-game slate, so there is a lot of range of outcomes, a lot of volatility. So while now he shouldn't be one of the favorites to take this down, he probably shouldn't be 100-1. Like, I would not be shocked if 9, maybe 10 strikeouts were to take down this slate, and he does have that kind of upside. He hasn't hit it yet, but it is there, and I'm projecting his fair odds to be closer to 35-1. So he's just offering way too much value here at 100-1.
And what better send-off could we possibly have from GDD than you hitting a 100-1 strikeout leader prop? I can't think of anything better. You do have some other K props for today as well, though.
Yeah, so my first K prop is an under, of course. It's Bailey Falter of the Pirates, under 4.5 strikeouts at minus 140. He's facing the Reds today. And he's cleared this number in 3 straight games, but the recent run in strikeouts doesn't look sustainable. All 3 opponents were just chasing his pitches at a way higher rate than he typically sees. But the Reds, they chase at the 6th lowest rate in the league. So this should be a tougher spot for Falter to get, them to be chasing pitches outside of the strike zone. Plus, this is just an easier matchup for the Reds after they had to face Paul Skeens yesterday. So this will be a welcome change of pace with Bailey Falter out there. And I think the Reds, I don't think their official lineup's out quite yet, but they should be able to send around 8 right-handed hitters against the Southpaw today. Falter has a 5% lower K rate against right-handed hitters in his career, so that should ding his K rate even more. I'm projecting to stay under this around 65% of the time, so I'm well okay taking this minus 140 juice here.
When they say like last names describe you, sometimes I'm getting that sense from Falter today. But you also have another K prop, not just Falter.
Yep. Another under. I'm going with Jake Irvin of the Nationals, under 4.5 strikeouts. You can get this at minus 115. He's facing the Diamondbacks today. And that's why this is just going to be a tougher matchup for Irvin to clear this number. The Diamondbacks should have one of the tougher lineups to strike out today. And Irvin gets most of his strikeouts off his fastball and curve combo, but the Diamondbacks have the lowest strikeout rate in the league against curveballs and the fourth lowest strikeout rate against fastballs. So this is just going to be a tough spot for Irvin to put them away with 2 strikes. His easiest batter to K will be Eugenio Suarez, who will likely be hitting 7th. But that's just going to make it that much tougher for him to face him a third time. It's unlikely he'll be able to get there the third time through. So just one more reason why I'm showing quite a bit of value on his under. I'm projecting with about a 60% chance he stays under 4.5 strikeouts against the Diamondbacks.
A couple of unders there in pure Sean Koerner fashion. All right, I think we've gotten enough on the baseball now. Let's swap hats and
All right.
move on to the WNBA.
Let's see. I think it's pretty clear where I'm going today there.
Yes, well, the Mercury do play in the later matchup, but let's start with the earlier matchup, which is the Sparks at Sun, and you have a player prop here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dearica Hamby of the Sparks to go under 3.5 assists. You can get it at -140. But Hamby's cleared this in 4 of her last 5 games, but this is a spot where I expect it to be much tougher for her to clear this number. The Sun have the best defensive rating in the league and play at the slowest pace. That's just going to make it 10 times tougher for her to clear this. But we've also seen the Sparks tinker with their lineup for what seems like a month now. And one of the trends I noticed that's starting to stick is Aerie McDonald's playing time has gone up in 6 straight games, played 31 minutes last game. I think that's going to stick. I think she's been playing really well. And that's notable because she has the highest assist percentage on the team. So that means the more minutes she's going to be playing, the lower everybody else's assist percentage is going to be, including Hamby. So I think that's another wrinkle that's, kind of showing why my projections are projecting Hamby closer to 3 assists here. And, I'm projecting this line to be closer to -165. So, -140, there's still some value there. But I think just all of the underlying factors are pointing to Hamby staying under 3.5 here.
I think you make a great point about the lineup tinkering because the Sparks are not expected to be making a playoff push. So I feel like Kurt Miller is just like happy to experiment a little. He's not necessarily trying to go all out to win every game. And then obviously when you're playing one of the best teams in the league, your offense probably isn't going to flow as well as you'd want to anyway. All right. So then in the second game, Liberty at Mercury, Libs are favored. They're in that top spot now in the standings, but you like the Dogs here tonight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm going with Mercury +5 here. And they were a team I remember talking to you about heading into the season. I was very high on with the additions of Natasha Cloud, Rebecca Allen, and Clea Copper, who's been playing just phenomenal, especially recently. However, they were without Brittany Griner and Rebecca Allen for, the first several games of the season. But now that both are back, this team's finally at full health, and we've seen them play at a very high level. And I think they're still a tad underrated, just given they've faced the toughest schedule to date, according to my strength of schedule metric. And this is going to be their 3rd straight home game, a game I'm expecting them to give max effort against the Liberty, who are currently the best team in the league. They are atop my power ratings for good reason. However, they faced the second easiest schedule this season. Again, one of the reasons is they don't have to face the Liberty. But this is going to be their 5th road game out of their last 6 games. So it's just a potential letdown spot for them. This game probably means a lot more to the Mercury than it does the Liberty. So I was projecting Phoenix, closer to +3.5. I'm not shocked. They have the Liberty at -5. It looks like 88% of the action has been on the Liberty, and this line hasn't budged. So what does that tell you? But I think this line is a couple points too high. And I'm not willing to go there with the money line, but I would not be shocked if the Mercury win tonight's game.
I wouldn't either. And interestingly, earlier this season, the Mercury played at New York and they kept it close. I'm pretty sure it was a 4-point loss. And that was without Rebecca Allen and without Brittany Griner. But, the whole band got back together for the last few games, and in particular Sunday, watching them play against Seattle. I mean, how good did they look? I started getting like definitely intrigued by the future of the Phoenix Mercury. All right, so riding with the Merc tonight. Sean Koerner, thanks for always wearing so many hats for us. We appreciate your insight.
Yes. Thanks for having me. We'll see you for, I guess, the NFL season. I guess that's the next time we'll be on.
Hopefully we'll get a cameo on Bucket's WNBA pod as well at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Count me in. Yes, absolutely.
That's what I like, a verbal commitment that I can hold you to. Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Right, thanks for having me. See ya.
Over to hockey, the Panthers have another chance to secure the Stanley Cup tonight, while the Oilers will try to keep up the momentum from Game 4 as they tallied 8 goals after only scoring 4 total in the first 3 games of the series. Stuart Skinner also stopped 32 of 33 shots in Game 4. En route to the 8-1 win, the Oilers, who are 6-5 on the road this postseason, are still plus money versus the Panthers in Game 5 at 8 o'clock Eastern. As we welcome hockey insider for Daily Faceoff, Frank Seravalli, to GDD. Thanks so much for joining us. So the Oilers finally had a breakthrough on Saturday, but can they sustain that as the series goes on?
Of course they can, Maria. This is one of the most gifted offensive teams that we've seen in the NHL. Some of the best goal scorers, not to mention 2 of the most clutch playoff performers of their generation in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Yet they had talked about getting good looks and good chances and not finding a way to convert and finish, only to have the dam absolutely break. They get Sergei Bobrovsky yanked from the game, 5 goals on 11 shots. He's on the bench in the first 25 minutes, and all of a sudden the series, it seems, has been flipped on its head. For a team that couldn't score in the first 3 games, they've now scored 8 on Bobrovsky in the last 3 periods. And so they've found a way to make it happen, but I'd be betting on a Panthers bounce back, specifically for Bobrovsky, a guy that has always found a way as one of the most dialed in athletes.
Okay, so that sounds like you are officially on Florida for tonight's game from a betting standpoint.
Yeah, I just look at it and I say there's not really great value on the Oilers considering the crazy odds that they're facing to really make this a series. And what we're talking about here, down 3-0, is probably the greatest comeback if they could pull it off in the history of the sport. There's a reason why there's so few 3-0 comebacks. So can they win one game? Yeah, but I'd be betting on the Panthers. On the puck line here, I think that's the best way to find value, either thinking something like a 4-1 Panthers win as they find a way to defend better off the rush. Bobrovsky is much better. Or as a hockey bettor, if you're playing the puck line, you know that you're praying for the empty netter. If the Oilers are trying to push late to tie the game, maybe Florida perhaps finds a way that way to get you the puck line win.
So you also like a player prop for tonight. Tell us about that and how that plays into how you expect Florida to get this done.
Yeah, so Anton Lundell has been a guy that's been right around it for the Panthers here in these playoffs. Think back to some of their previous series, found some big goals against the Boston Bruins, scored against the New York Rangers, but has yet to get on the scoreboard with a goal so far in the Stanley Cup Final. I like Lundell as an anytime goal scorer. You could get him in the plus 550 range. He's someone that has a clutch gene, has 3 points in his last 2 games and has been right around it, but hasn't found a way to get a goal. I like him as an anytime goal scorer as the Panthers go to try and clinch this Stanley Cup.
Very nice. Now, who are you betting on the Edmonton side of things?
Maria, I can't imagine that we can get through a Stanley Cup Final and one of the most vaunted offenses with a power play that for stretches during this postseason has looked Harlem Globetrotters like. We've had multiple games so far in the Oilers postseason where they've scored 3 power play goals in one game. They're 1 for 16 so far in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I like a little bit of a different look on a parlay. I've got Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, and Zach Hyman all to get 1 power play point. That should be pretty juicy. And all three of those things could happen on one power play goal, given that they're big parts of the 5-man unit. So you're looking for a multi-goal power play effort from the Oilers if you're liking their chances to force Game 6. Of their 22 playoff games so far, 5 of them have been multi-power play goal games. So you're giving yourself a decent chance if this team can finally break through after getting to Bobrovsky last game at even strength. They found a power play goal late in that game when it didn't really mean much. Can they keep that power play momentum moving forward? No matter what happens in terms of the result of this Game 5, I like the Oilers power play to find a way.
Definitely expecting the Oilers to put up probably the biggest fight that they have left in them to prevent the Panthers from having an easy way of securing the cup. But Frank Seravalli, thanks so much. Enjoyed your GDD debut.
Thank you.
Your 2024 NBA champions are the Boston Celtics, who won Game 5 convincingly, 106-88, to knock out the Mavericks 4-1. Jason Tatum had 31 points, 11 assists, and 8 boards. Jaylen Brown added 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. And here are the two Celtics superstars after the game.
It's a real feeling. Still hasn't really kicked in yet. Just trying, I guess, enjoy the moment. I kept saying, wow. These last 7 years have been a roller coaster, up and down. I had to listen to all the shit that people said about me. And tonight, it was worth it. Oh, my God.
It feels great, but, you know, any of the personal awards, you know, it is what it is, you know. Yeah, the doubters, they may be quieted now, but they'll be back. You know, they'll probably be back next year with something else to say. So we just all embrace that moment the same and get after it yet again.
All right, we bring in our NBA expert, Jim Turvey, now. So the Celts finished the postseason 16-3, 80-21 overall. Of the franchise's 18 championship runs, that's 792 win percentage, ranks second in team history behind only the 85-86 Celtics. Do you feel like Boston was getting the proper respect throughout this season?
Well, I think, you know, from a betting perspective, they certainly were getting the proper respect. It's actually kind of why I struggled to get on them at any time this season. They were such heavy favorites all season, in part because the East has been so suspect, in part because the Sharps really believed in the Celtics all season. So I don't know if I would say that they're lacking in respect in the market, but I do think there are a lot of people out there who are kind of extreme haters on the Celtics. So I'll kind of position myself in between the two. I was never quite as high on them, admittedly, as the market. You know, the only bet I really got down on them was that great Joe Delara find on the Atlantic Division that we were able to cash out last night. But the other side of things, I'm not on Team Asterisk. I don't think that this is a title that deserves, you know, caveats aplenty. Every year, you just got to beat who's in front of you. And this Celtics team really did come together well. I think they were playing their best basketball in this finals. I think we really saw from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown probably the best 5-game stretch in important moments that we've seen from them in their careers, and incredibly well-deserving. So I kind of want to position myself. I certainly don't think this is the second best Celtics team ever. I don't think if you looked at that winning percentage and just, you know, did a control sort on NBA history and saw where they landed, that would accurately represent how talented this team is. But I also think you have to credit them for what they were able to accomplish. And it was a very real accomplishment, and they did everything that was asked of them at every step of the way. So I'll kind of give that kind of wishy-washy in-between answer of, I'm not a full hater, but I'm not the one hating the haters either. So I'm kind of in the middle there.
Look, if I'm Kristaps Porzingis, I wouldn't want to play Kevin Garnett. Like, I feel like he would eat him alive. But at the same time, I fully agree with what you're saying. And look at the gap between the first seed and the second seed in the East. Not to mention, the Celtics had the best record in all of the NBA. So they put themselves in this position to have the path that they had. Now let's talk about another mild controversy, if we want to call it that. So Jaylen Brown received 7 of 11 votes to win Finals MVP. The other 4, of course, going to Jason Tatum. Do you agree with how the votes shook out?
I would have given it to Tatum, and I actually was pretty surprised, almost even more, I think, surprised because of the fact that JB had gotten it in the Eastern Conference Finals as well. That kind of felt like the acknowledgement that this is a two-player team, and that, you know, Tatum is the guy at the front of the line, but Jaylen Brown is very much a deserving 1A. To see him get it in both the conference finals and then the finals, I did find it surprising. You know, I'd be out here on an island and you know, little hipster pick of probably giving it to Drew Holiday. I just thought what he was able to do in taking out Kyrie and his job on the glass and creating and just never making poor decisions. I love what Drew's overall impact on it. But I get it. You know, Jaylen Brown had the big shot in game 2 and game 3 to kind of stabilize the Celtics. Those were the two close games in the series, really. You know, Matt Moore always talks about it's those moments, right? I think between those two big shots in big moments in games 2 and 3, and then the fact that he was the one kind of most notably on Luka all series, he really did, you know, he played good defense, and it was like it caught your eye. He was fighting over screens. He was really, you know, pressuring Luka at all times. He did an outstanding job, and, you know, Luka never really got comfortable. And, you know, we talked at times about how important it was for Jaylen Brown to be able to handle that assignment so that they didn't have to blitz Luka like they did, the Timberwolves did in the conference finals, and he was able to pick them apart. So Jaylen Brown did play an incredibly important role in this title. I probably would have given it to Drew. I thought it was going to be given to Tatum. I mean, he led the Celtics for the series in points and rebounds and assists, all individually. He led those categories. So I was surprised, but, you know, when you have a voter block of 11 voters, you're going to have some wonky results at times. And I don't think it's a crazy result. It just was a little surprising.
I don't take anything away from Jaylen Brown. This is a deserving recipient of this award, but I do admit I was surprised it wasn't Tatum, just because of how they closed it out and how he set the tone. And I thought the difference was made when he was being aggressive, particularly offensively. And, you know, the defensive effort, I think that definitely worked in Brown's favor, but I also think it was mostly a team effort. And it was also very much about shutting down the other guys apart from Luka. So could have gone either way, in my opinion, but I'm happy to be on the same side of Malika Andrews and Doris Burke and a couple of the other voters that went Tatum. Feel bad, though. I don't want to hate on either one. They both were phenomenal. Both had a great series. Okay, let's talk about the Mavericks for a second, who obviously had a lot of issues in this series. What needs to change for them to get to the next level?
So this is going to sound like a cop-out, but I actually don't know if a whole lot has to change. I think because of the way the league is positioned right now, we really saw it this postseason. This was the most who you are going up against, who your matchup is, who your personnel is in against your matchup. This mattered more than ever. It's kind of, you know, Adam Silver's long-wanted parity in the league. We kind of have arrived to the point where we have a decent amount of parity. Again, I think it's part of why I hold a little bit against the Celtics with historically this title, not an asterisk, just saying that this is a very parity-filled league, and it really matters the matchup you get. So getting out of that Western Conference was absolutely no joke. And if they had gotten the right matchup in the finals, I think they very much could have won the title this year. Mm-hmm. If they had, you know, say the Sixers stayed healthy and they got a Joel Embiid, maybe they could have handled that a little bit better. Or, you know, if we talked about if the Knicks had stayed healthy, we thought they could give the Celtics a little run for their money. That's a matchup they could have done better as well. So I honestly think it's going to be hard for any of these teams. You know, we saw Minnesota build a team to beat Denver. They did it, but then they didn't have the personnel to beat Dallas. So it's really, you kind of got to get a little bit lucky, which is, you know, to credit Boston, I do think they're the least matchup. They're the most matchup resistant because they can, you know, what they did in the series where they're able to, you know, kind of go 1 through 5, switch a lot of things, but that's not going to last forever. You know, if Horford retires or isn't, you know, able to quite keep up pace, even that becomes questionable. So I think that the door is open for Dallas, but I think the door is open for a lot of teams, and it's really going to come down to matchups. And it's why it's going to be so fun to watch these next couple of postseasons, at least with the NBA landscape as is, because it really is who are you playing against and how does your personnel match up against them?
That's true. And that also would indicate that Dallas is going to have a hard time maybe getting back there. But I'll just add this, like, I don't want to make too much of it. I do believe that Luka Doncic is going to grow from this experience, both in terms of how he conditions his body throughout the season to try to stay healthier. as well as his behavior. I also do wonder a little bit about personnel. I think Dallas deserves credit for the moves that they made at the deadline, which pushed them to even be able to get to this point. And then, I think once you have the right personnel, some of those X's and O's, like, I don't know, I thought that some of the game script was questionable in terms of, how they played this. But all that being said, let's have a sort of a way too early prediction on next season, because once again, Boston has the shortest odds to win the NBA Finals, plus 300. Would you take that bet?
I would not take it right now. And now, of course, this is coming from, last year I kept saying, I don't want Boston at this number because we're going to wait and we're going to see how things shake out. And then a bunch of people got hurt in the East and the number never got better for Boston. And, I for the most part, missed out on Boston. But if it's this time of year, I want a long shot. So I'm going to be staying away. I really think what you want to be doing, free agency is now open, right? So teams can be talking to players. You can beat news. You have to be really attuned, set up those Twitter notifications for some of the big names out there, and you got to have the books open and ready to roll. But if you're able to, you can beat the books on news. I know we've had some people on here talking about the second Drew Holiday landed on the Celtics. It was boom, get that title ticket in. That definitely can be a way to approach it. I also think that you can kind of zoom out and kind of look at a big picture of like who could position themselves well. The Spurs are going to be a trendy pick. I think for a title shot, that's maybe a little bit long. I'll give the Pelicans at 50-1 if I have to do one today. I'm always on the Pelicans. At some point, maybe it will pay off. But they have the ceiling to be able to do it. They have the roster capability, and They have some flexibility this summer. They potentially could flip Brandon Ingram and really get some interesting pieces. I've long loved their depth. I love their coaching. They seem to take some strides forward last year. So, maybe next year is the one. We talked about how it's all about matchups. They kind of are a Boston light in that they can match up with a lot of teams. So I think that they're an interesting team at a nice long number. I don't want to be betting a plus 300 and locking it in for a full year right now, unless I'm, thinking it's an absolute, something like an A'ja Wilson MVP type thing. That's what you lock up, for a year. This Celtics team, I'm not ready to go on a plus 300 and carry it on for the full next year.
Okay, I have to say, I was a little surprised to see you say Pelicans, but I get it. Right now, it's a little bit of a long shot. And look, Zion Williamson is another one. If he stays healthy, it changes everything. But speaking of your A'ja Wilson MVP pick, let's move into the WNBA now. As you know, 2 games tonight, and we talked through these games on our Buckets WNBA podcast, so definitely check that out if you haven't yet. But let's start with the Sparks and Sun and give us your best bet for that one.
Yeah. So my favorite pick there, it's going to be a little bit of a funky one. It's the Sun second quarter spread. I like them minus 3.5 in the second quarter. They've been absolutely outstanding in these second quarters throughout the season. They've got a really good bench. And their rotations just line up really well to dominate these second quarters. They got plus 22.1 net rating in the second quarter. And on the flip side of that, that's best in the WNBA. The absolute worst in the WNBA is their opponent on Tuesday, the LA Sparks, who are negative 22.8. So there can sometimes be noise in these quarter bets, but we're now about a third of the way through the season. We have a little bit of a sample to work off of here. And when it's at this extreme, the absolute best team by a mile in the W versus the absolute worst team in the W by a mile, I don't mind hanging the minus 3.5 here on the Sun in the second quarter. Then I've got player prop for you as well. This is another one we talked through on Buckets. Diana Taurasi, some folks GOAT. She has a really interesting trend that we talked about as well. So I'm going to be on her over 3.5 assists or 4+ assists. You can also find it in the market that way as well. I'm going to take that to minus 175. It's at a plus number right now. So there's a lot of wiggle room on this one. So DT, what's really interesting about her, to start the season, we were actually on her assist unders because they had brought in Natasha Cloud, the Mercury had, and she was moving out of a playmaking role. However, with Brittany Griner back, this is a teammate she's had for over a decade now, and they've really worked to create some really strong chemistry such that, so our favorite, pbpstats.com, with BG on the court, Diana averages 21.6 assists per 100 possessions. With her off, it's down to 6.9. So Taurasi had the first chunk of the season where she had no Griner. The assists plummeted. They really were dropping. Now we got her back. That lowered the number. Now we got her back. The last 3 games that she's had VG full time, she's gotten 4 assists, and then 7 assists. So I like her to reach 4. I actually have a projected over 4. And right now you can get a nice plus money on it. So I'm all over Taurasi and BG, that connection against the Liberty tonight. So that'll be my second bet for the evening.
Liberty favored by 5 in Phoenix. That one tips at 10 p.m. Eastern. And I'm just going to go ahead and credit myself with an assist if this one hits, because, I feel like we got in the lab a little bit with our Buckets WNBA podcast. And I'm happy with how this worked out and hoping for a big night from DT feeding BG. Jim Turvey, thanks so much for joining Green Dot Daily.
As always, thanks.
And remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. And that's going to do it for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again Thursday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel.